I didn't think jealousy could sneak up on you from the back seat of a rented SUV at 2 in the morning, somewhere between Nevada and Utah, but that's exactly where it hit me. It started with a laugh. Not mine. His. Mark's laugh. I hadn't heard it in almost a year, not like that. Easy. Unfiltered. The kind he used to have when we were together, before everything got complicated and quiet, and ended with a long, careful conversation neither of us really won. And now here I was, gripping the steering wheel, pretending I wasn't paying attention, while my ex-boyfriend laughed at something his new best friend had said. His straight best friend. Yeah, that one. Let me back up. The road trip was Mark's idea, technically. We'd stayed in loose contact since the breakup birthdays, the occasional "how've you been?" text, nothing heavy. So when he messaged me out of the blue saying he needed help driving cross-country to help his sister move, I should have said no. Instead, I said sure. Could be fun. That should have been my first warning sign. The second was when he added, my friend Jake's coming too. You'll like him. Jake. I met Jake in the parking lot of the car rental place in San Diego. He was leaning against the SUV, sunglasses on, white t-shirt, tan like he lived outdoors. Tall, broad shoulders, relaxed confidence. The kind of guy who didn't try to take up space, but somehow did anyway. This is Jake, Mark said. Jake, this is Dash. Yeah, I know who you are. Jake cut in, smiling as he stuck his hand out. The infamous ex. I raised an eyebrow. Infamous. Mark groaned. Don't. Jake laughed. Relax. He only says good things. Mostly. That was the first moment I felt it, that faint, annoying twist in my chest. Because Mark used to talk about me like that. Like I was someone worth mentioning. We hit the road before sunset. The first few hours were easy. Music, gas station snacks, surface level catching up. Mark sat in the passenger seat. Jake took the back, stretched out like he'd already claimed it. I told myself I was fine, that I was over Mark, that this was just a drive. But then the night got longer. The conversations got quieter. Jake leaned forward more, resting his arms on the front seats, chiming in with stories about camping trips, dumb college mistakes, inside jokes he and Mark clearly shared. And Mark lit up around him. At some point, Jake said, Man, remember that night in Flagstaff? Mark laughed instantly. Don't. I was so drunk. You cried over a gas station burrito, Jake said. Like, genuinely cried. I forced a smile. That sounds emotional. Mark glanced at me, just for a second. It was a rough time. Jake shrugged. You had me. You were fine. That's when it really sank in. I wasn't jealous of a straight guy. I was jealous that Mark leaned on him the way he used to lean on me. We pulled into a cheap roadside hotel somewhere after midnight. 2 rooms booked. Or at least, that's what I thought. The desk clerk barely looked up. You guys want 1 room or 2? 2, I said immediately. Mark hesitated. Jake didn't. Actually, Jake said. They said 1 room was cheaper, right? The clerk nodded. King bed. Pull-out couch. Mark looked between us. I mean, unless that's weird. I swallowed. It's fine. It wasn't fine. We rode the elevator up in silence. The room smelled like detergent and old carpet. Jake tossed his bag onto the couch like he owned the place. I called a shower first, he said. Long drive wrecks my back. Mark laughed again. That laugh. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the patterned comforter, telling myself this was normal, that nothing about this mattered. Then Jake walked out of the bathroom 10 minutes later, shirt gone, towel slung low on his hips, skin still damp. He caught me looking, didn't say a word, just smiled. And something in my gut told me this trip wasn't about Mark anymore. I told myself not to overthink it. Jake disappearing into the bathroom shirtless didn't mean anything. Guys did that. Straight guys especially comfortable, unbothered, completely unaware of the chaos they caused just by existing. Except Jake was very aware. I lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling while Mark scrolled on his phone beside me, the faint glow lighting up his face. Familiar face. Familiar posture. Unfamiliar distance. So, I said, breaking the silence, how long have you 2 been this close? Mark glanced at me. What do you mean? I shrugged. Inside jokes. Burrito trauma. Sharing hotel rooms. He sighed, locking his phone. We've been friends a while. He was there when things were bad. Bad. He meant after we broke up. I nodded, swallowing the sting. Got it. The bathroom door opened again. Jake stepped out in gym shorts this time, towel tossed over his shoulder. His hair was damp, darker than before, curling slightly at the ends. He looked relaxed. At home. Hot water's all yours, he said to Mark. Then, to me, you driving tomorrow too? Or you tapping out? I'm good, I said. I don't sleep much anyway. Jake's mouth twitched. Same. Mark grabbed his things and headed into the bathroom, leaving the two of us alone with the hum of the AC and the unspoken tension I could practically taste. Jake flopped onto the couch, arms behind his head. So, he said casually, you and Mark dated how long? 3 years, I replied. Give or take. That's serious, he said. You don't seem bitter. I laughed quietly. I am. Just selectively. He turned his head, studying me now. Really looking. You still love him. It wasn't a question. I didn't answer right away. Does it matter? Jake shrugged. Only because it explains the look you get. What look? Like you're bracing for impact, he said. Like something's about to be taken from you. I stared at him, pulse picking up. You always this perceptive? Only when I'm bored, he said, smirking. The bathroom fan shut off. We both went quiet. Mark came out a minute later, hair damp, shirtless now too. Like this was all some kind of joke the universe was playing on me. Couch still good? Mark asked Jake. Perfect, Jake said. I'll pass out in like 5 minutes. I lay back down, turning onto my side, facing away from them. I told myself sleep would come. It didn't. I don't know how much time passed before I felt it the shift in the room. The weight change. The couch creaking softly. Then footsteps. Careful ones. I kept my eyes closed. The bed dipped slightly behind me. A breath. Not Mark's. Too slow. Too controlled. Jake. He didn't touch me. Not at first. Just stood there long enough for my heart to start hammering. You awake? He whispered. I swallowed. Yeah. Relax, he said quietly. I'm not doing anything. That made it worse. I rolled onto my back, propping myself up on my elbows. Then what are you doing? He sat on the edge of the bed, elbows on his knees. In the dim light, his expression was serious. Not teasing. Not smug. I didn't mean to make things weird, he said. Earlier. You didn't, I lied. He exhaled. Look, Mark doesn't know how you look at him. But I do. My throat went dry. Congratulations. And he doesn't know how you look at me, Jake continued. That snapped my attention. What? Jake turned toward me fully now. You're not jealous of me because I'm close to him. I said nothing. You're jealous because you don't know what I want, he said. And because part of you's scared I might want you. The room went very quiet. That's insane, I said. Jake smiled soft this time. Almost nervous. Is it? Before I could answer, Mark shifted in his sleep, mumbling something incoherent. Jake stood. Get some rest, he whispered. Tomorrow's a long drive. He walked back to the couch like nothing had happened. I lay there, staring into the dark, heart racing, one thought looping over and over. This road trip wasn't about revisiting the past. It was about something far more dangerous. Morning came too fast. I woke up stiff, tangled in sheets that smelled faintly like hotel detergent, and something else, something familiar enough to make my chest ache. Mark was already up, sitting on the edge of the bed scrolling through his phone, hair still messy from sleep. Jake went to grab coffee. He said quietly, like he didn't want to wake the room. I nodded. My mouth felt dry. Cool. There was an awkward pause. The kind we'd gotten good at near the end of our relationship. You okay? Mark asked. I considered lying. Did you sleep through the night? He hesitated. Mostly. That answer told me more than he probably realized. Jake came back 10 minutes later, balancing a cardboard drink tray and a paper bag. He looked too awake for someone who'd slept on a pull-out couch. Sunglasses on, hair pulled back with his fingers like he hadn't bothered with a mirror. Morning, gentlemen, he said. I got whatever looked strongest. I took the coffee he handed me. Our fingers brushed just barely, but he didn't pull away right away. Didn't look down either. Just held my gaze like it was nothing. Like it was everything. The drive that day felt different. Tighter. Charged. Mark talked less. Jake talked more, but not like before. Not jokes or stories. He asked questions. About my job. Where I grew up. Why Mark and I really broke up. I kept my answers vague. Mark stared out the window. Somewhere in the desert, Jake said casually. We're stopping tonight in a smaller town. Fewer hotels. Mark nodded. So probably, one room again. I didn't respond. Neither did Jake. We pulled into town just after sunset. One motel. One vacancy. Same deal. One bed. One couch. This time, No one pretended it was just about money. Mark tossed his bag down hard. I'm grabbing a shower. The door closed behind him with more force than necessary. Jake leaned against the wall, arms crossed. He knows something's off. Yeah, I said. So do I. Jake studied me for a long moment. You don't hate me. No, I admitted. That's kind of the problem. He stepped closer. Slowly. Deliberately. I'm not straight. The words hit me harder than I expected. I let out a short laugh. That's convenient timing. I never said it out loud because I didn't need to, he said. Until now. And Mark? I asked. Does he know? Jake shook his head. No. He just thinks I'm the guy who helped him survive losing you. That landed somewhere deep. You didn't, I said. I left. Jake's voice softened. He still lost you. The bathroom water shut off. Jake stepped back instantly, putting distance between us like he was proving a point to me, or to himself. Mark came out, towel around his waist, eyes flicking between us. What did I miss? Nothing, Jake said easily. Too easily. Dinner was tense. 3 of us sitting in a diner booth that felt way too small. Mark barely touched his food. Finally, he snapped. Okay, what the hell is going on? Jake looked at me. I looked at Mark. I think, I said carefully. This trip brought up stuff none of us planned for. Mark scoffed. That's vague. Jake leaned forward. Do you trust me? Mark didn't answer right away. Then, quietly, yeah. Jake nodded. Good. Because I'm not here to take anything from you. Mark's eyes flicked to me. Then back to Jake. Then why does it feel like you already have? Silence stretched between us. Back at the motel, Mark claimed the bed without comment and turned his back to us. Jake lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling. I lay awake, heart pounding, every sense tuned to the smallest movement. Sometime in the night, I felt it again. A presence. This time, I didn't pretend to be asleep. Jake stood beside the bed, face unreadable. I can't keep pretending, he whispered. Mark shifted slightly, but didn't wake. You don't get to do this, I said softly. Not here. I know, Jake replied. That's why I need to know. He looked at me like the answer mattered more than anything. If Mark wasn't in this room, he asked, barely louder than my breathing, would you want me to touch you? My heart slammed against my ribs. And I didn't answer fast enough to lie. The silence after Jake's question was loud enough to wake Mark. I stared at him, my mouth opening, closing. My heart was racing, not just because of what he'd asked, but because part of me already knew the answer. Jake straightened slightly. You don't have to say it, he whispered. Your face already did. That's not fair, I murmured. I know. His voice softened. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have put you in that position. He stepped back, hands up like he was surrendering. For a second, I thought he was going to walk away again, back to the couch, back to pretending. Instead, he sat on the edge of the bed, careful not to touch me. This isn't about anything physical, he said quietly. It's about the fact that every time Mark looks at you, he still looks like he's missing something. And every time you look at him, you're trying not to. I swallowed hard. You don't know everything. No, Jake said. But I know enough to know this trip cracked something open. Mark shifted again, letting out a low sigh, still asleep. Jake glanced over his shoulder, then back at me. Tomorrow, we're almost there. After that, we all go back to our lives. Do we? I asked. He gave a sad smile. That's kind of the problem, isn't it? He stood and walked back to the couch, this time not looking back. I didn't sleep after that. The next day was the longest drive yet. Mark was quiet, too quiet. No music, just the sound of tires on asphalt and the occasional GPS prompt. Jake sat in the back again, but this time he didn't stretch out. He sat upright, hands folded, eyes on the road ahead like he was bracing for impact. At a gas station stop, Mark pulled me aside near the vending machines. Are you mad at me? He asked suddenly. I blinked. What? You've been distant, he said. Since the first night. I laughed under my breath. You invited your ex on a road trip with your new best friend and booked shared hotel rooms. What did you expect? His jaw tightened. I expected honesty. That hurt more than I thought it would. You want honesty? I said quietly. I didn't realize how much of you I'd lost until I saw you with someone else. Mark looked stunned. I didn't replace you. I know, I said. That doesn't mean it doesn't feel like it. From across the lot, Jake watched us. He didn't try to join, didn't interrupt. That somehow made it worse. Back in the car, Mark finally spoke. Jake, he said, eyes forward. Are you in love with me? The question landed like a dropped plate. Jake didn't answer right away. When he did, His voice was steady. No. I exhaled before I could stop myself. I care about you, Jake continued. But not like that. Mark nodded slowly. And him. The silence this time was mine. Jake met my eyes in the rearview mirror. Didn't smile. Didn't deflect. I don't know, he said honestly. But I want to find out. Mark pulled over. Just like that. No warning. Gravel crunching under the tires. He turned to face us, eyes glassy but calm. I don't get to choose what either of you feel, he said. But I do get to choose not to be lied to. I nodded. We haven't touched. Nothing's happened. Jake added, I would never do that to you. Mark closed his eyes for a long moment. When he opened them, there was something like acceptance there. Not peace but resolve. Finish the trip, he said. Help my sister. Then, we'll see. The rest of the drive passed in fragile truce. That night, the motel had 3 rooms available. Mark insisted we take separate ones. As I stood in my doorway, keycard in hand, Jake stopped beside me. Whatever happens next, he said softly, I don't regret meeting you like this. I looked at him, really looked at him, and realized something terrifying and true. Neither did I. And the road trip was over. But the consequences were just beginning. I thought having my own room would help. It didn't. The silence was worse than the tension. No breathing nearby. No quiet movement. Just me, alone with my thoughts and the low hum of the motel's ancient AC unit rattling like it was about to give up. I stared at the ceiling, replaying everything. Jake's voice. Mark's face when he asked that question. The way the car felt when Mark pulled over like something fragile had cracked but hadn't shattered yet. Sometime after midnight, there was a knock at my door. Not loud. Not hesitant. Just deliberate. I sat up instantly. I didn't have to ask who it was. When I opened the door, Jake stood there in sweatpants and a hoodie, hands in his pockets. Jaw tight like he'd been arguing with himself the whole walk down the outdoor corridor. I won't come in unless you ask, he said quietly. That alone made my chest ache. Why are you here? I asked. He met my eyes. Because tomorrow we say goodbye like adults who survived something together. And I don't want a night to be full of things we never said. I stepped aside. That was the invitation. He didn't touch me right away. Just stood near the dresser, looking around the room like it was unfamiliar territory. Which, in a way, it was. I meant what I said earlier, he began. About not knowing what this is. I leaned back against the door. You sure you want to figure that out with your best friend's ex? He let out a breathless laugh. God, when you say it like that, it sounds terrible. It kind of is. Yeah, he admitted. But it's also honest. We stood there, the space between us charged but controlled. No rushing. No pretending this was simple. You know what scares me? I said. Jake tilted his head. Tell me. That if something happens between us, I said slowly, it won't just change us. It'll change Mark. And no matter how much time has passed, I don't want to be the thing that hurts him again. Jake nodded. That's why I haven't touched you. The admission surprised me. I've wanted to, he added quietly. Since the first night. But wanting something doesn't mean you get to take it. I swallowed hard. You're not what I expected. He smiled faintly. You either. The silence shifted, then not heavy, not tense. Just open. I still love him, I said. Not in the way I used to. But enough that it complicates everything. Jake stepped closer. Still didn't touch me. I don't need you to stop loving him. My heart skipped. You don't. No, he said. I need you to be honest about what you feel now. I looked up at him. And if what I feel is confused, then we start there. That's when I closed the distance. Not fast. Not desperate. Just enough that I could feel his warmth, smell his soap, feel the tension in his shoulders. I rested my forehead against his chest. He froze for half a second, then relaxed. His hand came up slowly, stopping inches from my back. Okay, he whispered. Okay, I said. When he finally touched me, it wasn't physical in that way. Just his hand resting between my shoulder blades, steady and grounding, like he was saying I'm here without words. I exhaled shakily. We stood like that for a long time. No kissing. No crossing lines we couldn't uncross. Just 2 people acknowledging something real. Eventually, he stepped back. Get some sleep, he said softly. Tomorrow's already going to be hard. I nodded. Thank you. For not making this messier than it already is. He smiled, tired but sincere. I'm very aware whose mess it already is. At the door, he paused. Whatever happens next, I'm glad it's with truth. Then he left. The next morning, we finished the drive. Mark hugged me goodbye longer than necessary. Jake and I shared a look that said this isn't over. even if neither of us knew what this was yet. As I drove away alone, I realized something that surprised me. For the first time since the breakup, I didn't feel like I was losing something. I felt like I was choosing. I didn't expect Jake to call. I especially didn't expect him to call 3 days later, while I was standing in line at the grocery store, holding a basket with one sad frozen dinner and a bottle of wine I didn't really want. I stared at my phone until it stopped ringing. Then it buzzed again. I stepped out of line and answered. Hey. Hey, he said. His voice sounded different, less guarded. Am I interrupting? No, I lied. What's up? There was a pause. I could hear traffic on his end. When, maybe. Mark told me he moved his sister in. Jake said. Everything went fine. That's good, I replied. And I meant it. Another pause. Longer this time. He also told me, Jake continued carefully, that he's seeing someone. My chest tightened, sharp and instinctive. Oh, yeah, he said. He said it like it was a test. Or maybe a shield. I leaned against the wall outside the store. How do you feel about that? Jake exhaled. Relieved. And sad. Which feels fair. We sat with that honesty between us, neither rushing to fill the space. I keep thinking about that night, he said. In your room. Me too. I don't want to be a maybe, Jake added. But I also don't want to be a mistake. I closed my eyes. Neither do I. So, he said, voice steadier now. I'm going to be in your city next week. Work thing. No expectations. No pressure. Just coffee. In public. With exits. I laughed quietly. You really are not straight. He chuckled. Confirmed. I'd like that, I said. Coffee. After we hung up, I stood there longer than necessary, letting the feeling settle. Not excitement exactly. Something calmer. Something chosen. Seeing Jake again was strange. Not awkward. Not dramatic. Just two people walking toward each other in a coffee shop like they hadn't shared a road trip that cracked open 3 lives. He looked good. Familiar. Different. You look rested, he said, hugging me briefly. Safe. Platonic. Warm. You look nervous, I replied. Accurate. We sat. We talked. About work. About dumb things. About Mark, but carefully, kindly. I don't want to compete with your past, Jake said at one point. Or erase it. You're not, I replied. You're just adjacent to it. He smiled. I can live with adjacent. The weeks that followed weren't a whirlwind. No dramatic confessions. No secret intensity. Just dates. Real ones. Walks. Dinners. A slow, deliberate build. The first time we kissed, it wasn't rushed or desperate. It happened after an argument about nothing important and ended with us laughing, breathless, foreheads pressed together. This is happening, he murmured. Yeah, I said. It is. We took our time. With Mark. With ourselves. With whatever this was becoming. And one night, months later, lying next to Jake in my bed, I realized something quietly profound. The road trip didn't give me a new love. It gave me closure and the courage to let something new grow without guilt. Sometimes the journey doesn't end where you think it will. Sometimes it just teaches you how to arrive. I thought that would be the ending. The calm, earned kind. The kind people tell themselves they deserve after enough hurt. But life doesn't really do clean endings. It does pauses. And then callbacks. Mark texted me on a Tuesday night. Just my name. I stared at it longer than I should have before replying. Yeah? Can we talk? He wrote. Not about Jake. About us. That alone told me something had shifted. We met a few days later at a quiet bar we used to love, neutral ground. Neither of us trying to reclaim it. Mark looked different. Not worse. Just settled in a way I hadn't seen before. I'm not here to reopen anything, he said quickly, like he'd rehearsed it. I just needed to say this out loud. I nodded. Okay. He took a breath. I spent a long time thinking I lost you because I wasn't enough. Then I spent a long time thinking I was fine without you. Turns out both of those were half true. I didn't interrupt. You leaving forced me to grow up, he continued. Jake helped, yeah? But you were the reason. And seeing you two on that trip, it hurt. But it also made something click. What? I asked. That loving someone doesn't mean owning that place in their life forever. That hit harder than I expected. I don't regret us, he said. And I don't regret letting you go. I smiled softly. Neither do I. We hugged. No electricity. No ache. Just gratitude. When I told Jake about it later that night, he listened quietly, then pulled me closer. You okay? He asked. Yeah, I said honestly. I think I finally am. He kissed my temple. Good. It's been a year now. Jake and I don't tell people some dramatic origin story. We say we met through a mutual friend, which is true, just incomplete. Sometimes, on long drives, he'll reach over and squeeze my hand and say, "Still weird how a road trip changed everything." I always smile. It didn't change everything. It just showed me what I was ready for, and what I wasn't afraid of anymore.